ladies and gentlemen. Joining me now is BattleBots alum Lisa Winter. She's the mastermind behind Mega Tento and is at the judges table for Season 3, or at least part of it. Lisa, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I do love bot builders turned judges. I had, the bad boy of BattleBots on, and Mr. Derek Young, and he was a blast to talk to. He says, he likes being at the judges table now because it takes a lot of pressure off competing, but he says he prefers fights that don't come down to a judge's decision. Would you say you concur with that statement?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. It's always such a blast to be the one fighting and controlling the robot. I wouldn't say it's necessarily less pressure at the event, though, because, you have to pay attention to every second and make sure you see everything that's going on so that you can fairly judge. But, yeah, it's when it's tight, man, it's, really nerve-wracking to try and make the right decision.
Gotcha. Well, let's get a little bit of your history. Now, you, of course, as I mentioned, were behind Mega Tento, but there was a few other bots before that. I think you're most memorable for that one because that was the ABC season, and that was one of the most, outrageous bot designs that we had seen in a while. So what was the first bot, and what seasons did you compete in of BattleBots before this?
Yeah, well, it was even a bit before then. So not many people know because it wasn't broadcast, but there was a thing called Robot Wars in the U.S., and that started 1994. And so I was in that from about 96 on, and I had this robot called Doughboy. Just like the Pillsbury Doughboy. I'm not entirely sure why I picked that name, but that was a lot of fun, and it had a spinning lawnmower blade on the top. And then, yeah, so that was probably one of my favorite robots. And then Tentamushi, which is, a lot of people know that from the Comedy Central days of BattleBots.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do remember that, actually. That was one of the more unique names, kind of sticks with you. Your thoughts on Comedy Central days, I sum it up as to it was more of it got treated as a gimmick, but then it was kind of where people enjoyed it more than I think even Comedy Central thought that people would enjoy. Was that kind of your take from it?
Well, trust me, when you're in the pits, everything is very serious. It is like a serious competition. Of course, we all help each other. It's not we're not going to be mean to each other, and we all fix each other's robots. But it's a real sport. I think. Yeah, it wasn't, we didn't really know how it was going to, appear on Comedy Central in the beginning until we, got there and started seeing some of the commentators. And then, they're all comedians. But, yeah, it was good to have a laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. And then BattleBots would take a hiatus, find a home on ABC, and then now it's found what a lot of people believe is its hopefully permanent home, but at least a comfortable home, a good forever home, if so be it, on Discovery. As a fan of BattleBots, the sport, watching it from home play out, knowing that you were there, that you've competed and now judged, how would you compare what we're seeing in Season 3 to, past seasons, ABC days, Comedy Central days?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely... I guess the first thing that popped into my head was sort of like Burning Man. In the beginning, it's 20 people just trying to blast some fireworks or, throw some sparks at each other and just have some fun on a weekend. And then TV got involved. It got more serious. There was so many applicants that now there's a huge process to get invited. And there's money on the line. I remember way back a couple years into the Comedy Central BattleBots where I won, it was some award. It wasn't for fighting, but it was the craziest looking robot or something. And so I won 2 Lego Mindstorms. So yeah, it's like a little more serious now, and we're trying to push it that way to get like more serious viewership as like, and look at it as like a real sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so be taken a bit more seriously.
And what would you say is the one thing that I can't recall Comedy Central days well enough to know if there even is, but is there anything that they used to do in BattleBots that you wish they'd maybe bring back or maybe do like a throwback to? I mean, it is Throwback Thursday after all, but I don't know if there's anything missing. It seems like they keep changing it, but what about you?
Well, yeah, so that is a huge change right now for this season, is the format and the Desperado and all of that. Like, you get basically 4 fights, and then we go to the tournament. And I'm really liking that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We have, the fight nights, right? So it's like we get to cheer on a what do you call it? Like a big end fight, that big finale.
Yeah.
And that's. Yeah, I think that's worked out really well. The thing I personally miss as a builder is the smaller weight classes. It's like it's not only like less time or less money or anything like that, but it's a whole different type of design and a whole different type of build strategy. So I think 60 pounders, possibly even 30. Was one of my favorite to build and fight, and so it'd be cool to have that again.
Fair enough. Now, we talked earlier about how you've made the transition from bot builder to judges table. Now, of course, this type of sport doesn't really have like an age out, limit or any kind of, I'm 42 now, I think it's time to hang them up and retire. Technically, I mean, I've spoken to guys that were very competitive in the Comedy Central days. You have a vet like Donald Hudson and guys that were from the original. They're the godfathers of the sport. But for you, is this maybe just a season off for you? Do you think you'll come back and compete again, or is this a better fit for you? What do you feel?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's a bit different for me starting so young. It's I'm not going to be dying out, but it is, it is a lot of stress. I've heard from some builders that, maybe we'll take a year off or something just for like health reasons. I've definitely heard that around the pits. But for me, I think it's more of a technicality right now in the TV show business, where since I was a judge for a show where there's actual like monetary prizes, there's a certain amount of time where I can't be a participant in the show, like after being a judge. So really that's one of the main factors right now, is trying to, we'll see if we get renewed for season 4, and if it's far enough away from me being a judge to legally be able to compete.
Now, why is that? Because it's not as if you can sway anything in your favor by competing after being a judge, and even Derek Young said himself that you guys don't talk at the table necessarily. It was about your decision or how you graded that fight. So is there something specific that a fan wouldn't know, not common knowledge, that would prevent someone from competing that has judged, that might be like, oh, well, that makes sense?
There isn't. It's one of those TV show, game show rules.
Wow.
Where, yeah, it's like, because it's not specific to BattleBots at all. It's just any sort of reality show or, any show with money. Like, you can't be a part of it for a year.
There's the money is probably all the answer people need. But
oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that there was like specific rules and regulations for a type of show, and you're absolutely right. Though BattleBots would follow under a few different categories. That's very interesting, though. I had no idea that you couldn't, because we have people in sports that come out of retirement all the time. But I always wonder if because you have to be retired for so long before you can be Hall of Fame eligible, and I wonder if a player went into the Hall of Fame, is there a rule preventing them from coming back and playing, and details, but that's very interesting to hear that there has to be a certain amount of time lapsed between being a judge and when you can compete again, so that's good to know for the future.
Yeah, it's one of those secret things. Like, there's a lot of things when I watch sports where we're like, I wonder, like, why do they make that decision? Do they have a personal issue or it's scheduling? But yeah, a lot of it's like these secret little legal rules of TV.
Yeah, so I thank you for the info. That's definitely something I did not know yesterday. So you learn something new every day, and I thank you for that, Lisa. Now, looking at Season 3, of course, you are a fan of the bot type that is sort of unorthodox, if there even is such a thing in this sport. But, of course, we've seen bots like Sharko, which I love because it is kind of gimmicky, but it's also very effective. And then fan favorite Huge has taken BattleBots by storm this season. Is there a bot that you have as kind of a personal favorite that's sort of right up your alley?
Oh no, that's probably something I can't say as a judge. But
oh yeah. Well, I guess maybe not favorite then, but one that you just kind of, I guess, keen to as far as their style. That might be a better way to put it.
Well, yeah, I mean, just you mentioned the sort of abnormal-ish robot, not just the metal box, and that's definitely my style. So any of the new robots, anyone trying something that hasn't been done before is, like, totally on the top of my list because, it's just like there's spinners, there's flippers, it's just been so limited, and I really want to see some experimentation and something new.
Yeah, I completely agree from that. I'd like to see something new and effective, something that can maybe shake up the game that is BattleBots. You see a lot of spinners, a lot of saws, and a lot of flippers. We'll see if anybody else has an idea. Double Jeopardy had the cannon, and I don't know how if anybody's going to copycat that, but you have you're looking for that knockout punch with that one shot that they've got. But props to those guys for trying to be innovative in a sport that obviously embraces it. Now,
and scary as shit, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's just scary, because we're just normal people, like, building something in the garage, basically, and then we show up, and it's not like, there's just people judging us for safety based on their experience, and there's still a lot of danger involved.
Very much so. Well, last thing I wanted to touch on here is that, in the world of sports, which I cover a lot of, obviously there's, sports in general, very male-dominated type of sport, hobby, I guess, just way of life, and there are women's divisions of everything, women's basketball, there's softball, even women's football, but, we're seeing a lot of sort of crossovers where people are becoming more and more, I guess, on an equal playing field. Well, BattleBots knows no gender. It knows no height, weight, or anything, with the exception, of course, of the weight regulations for your bot. But as far as the drivers, the creators, and the people behind the magic that we see in the BattleBox, we have seen a sort of resurgence of women competitors, and Leanne Cushing, who I had on the show just a couple of weeks ago, I think actually just the last episode I did, she mentioned that it was something that she was very excited about, one, to be a part of, but two, because she knows that women like yourself did so much for women in the sport. How does that make you feel, knowing that you were kind of a pioneer for women in BattleBots, and what do you see for the future of the sport?
Well, now thinking about it now, it's just great. It was not on my mind in the beginning. I just wanted to build something fun and dangerous, just like attack some other robots, and but myself stay safe, which is exactly what you were saying. It's a really great sport to do that, where you're not physically in the arena and anyone can compete. Your body, your gender is not going to be too different. You don't need to have a male BattleBots and a female BattleBot. That would just be crazy. But yeah, it's one of those things, and I think some of the other females mentioned similar feelings where we just lacked that part of the brain or ignored it about who am I to be in this, this event, this competition.
Yeah.
We just wanted to do it, and so we went for it. The really cool side effect, though, is that I'm finding out I'm getting fan mail from kids who are from little girls who just didn't know this was an option. And as someone who didn't think about that, it's so surprising that these girls are watching the show and they didn't know a female could build a robot before.
Oh wow!
It just blows my mind, and it makes me just really happy that there's some females on the show to inspire the next generation.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, and it's very, surprising, almost sad, but, at least the word is out there now. At least that wall or ceiling has been broken where, little girls that are inspired by you no longer think that it's an unattainable goal. So props to you and women like Leanne and the rest of the female bot competitors, even the Vasquez family and their mom, because it's a family affair with Team Whiplash, and you got to love something like that. Now, Friday, there is a special episode of BattleBots, USA versus the world. 10 teams will put their championship quests on hold to represent their flag in a global showdown of combat robotics, per the official BattleBots Instagram. Now, this season has, in my mind, exceeded expectations. It's gone above and beyond. The new format is great, and it's probably going to end up being about twice as long as its last season on ABC. But with where we are in the season, do you like kind of putting things on hold for something like this, or would you prefer if we push through to the ultimate goal, which is, of course, the 16-seed tournament and then crowning a champion?
Well, I mean, every fight is for me to watch, so and it's different for me because I know the outcome. So the road leading there is not necessarily something I can't wait to see. So I just want to see more destruction again and see all my friends.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it is USA versus the world, which I think is it's a interesting concept. I would kind of like it to be, I guess, more of like the world versus itself, where it's not just USA going against bots from other countries. But I think, it's a nice little pause, a nice little break, especially since this week a lot of kids are going to be going back to school. So it'll be a nice little breather for everyone, get collected, get settled back in, and then more BattleBots probably business as usual next week. But anyway, Lisa, I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk some robot fighting action here on the F.A.N show. And I hope that we see you back in the battle box real soon. And, but you're perfectly fine at the judges' table, too. You're a perfect candidate to have up there, making sure that these fights go in the right favor.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and yeah, you will see definitely a few more weeks of me on this season, and there's a lot of controversy coming up. I can't say more, but it's gonna be good.
Oh, well, there you have it, Lisa Winter with a perfect teaser for the rest of season 3 of BattleBots. Thank you so much. You enjoy the rest of your night, Lisa.
Yeah, you too.
All right. You're listening to The F.A.N Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's The F.A.N Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazzisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons, like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lenny, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo. Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again. So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right? Yeah. And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now is the man, the myth, the legend himself. From the Octagon to the Battle Box, it is Kenny Florian. How you doing, Kenny?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing great, man. A pleasure to have you on. I haven't seen you since the tapings, and you and I had a pretty good conversation at that time, which I'll have to post up on the website once we get to that point in the season. But, hey, been a great Season 3. Definitely started off with a bang, Minotaur and Tombstone. How do you feel from a commentary standpoint, from a fan standpoint, of how BattleBots Season 3 on Discovery has gone?
This season's been amazing. Again, I was really taken aback just by how great all the teams were and how inventive and creative they were. I think everyone really came together to bring the best bot that they could in the time that was allowed. And, for a lot of these bot builders, they didn't have a whole lot of time. But the way that they approach this season, you could see their passion, you could see their willingness to want to win it all. And I was just really impressed with all the teams. Every year, and it's the way it should be in all forms of combat, things are always improving. Teams are getting better. Robots are becoming more dangerous. They're getting bigger and badder, and it was a whole lot of fun because we got a lot of great fights.
Yeah, been a great variety, obviously, with the fight card format and sort of a season now before the actual tournament. So you get a regular season and then a postseason, and that's been really one of the focal points of this season is more than just a possibility of being one and done. But now I've talked to a lot of the bot builders. This is testing their depth, so to speak, with how well they're prepared to go the distance for multiple fights. And then, of course, if they should get into the tournament beyond that. What's seeing the season play out like this with bots getting more than just, one fight and having a regular season? How has that been received in your mind as far as from outside looking in, and then, of course, the BattleBots community?
Well, it was a lot of awesome, but it was also some bad, repercussions as well. Not necessarily bad. It was just more challenging for the bot builders and the teams because obviously it's a grueling season. Every fight, these bots are taking serious damage. It's a lot of pressure on these teams and bot builders to get everything back up and running in a short amount of time. The great part about it, and this was really great, was the fact that we got all these fights that we wanted to see. All the dream matches that we wanted to see, any rematches that we wanted to see, they were made possible by the matchmakers. So that was the great part about it. And we had so many memorable moments this season and many more to come. But the challenging part of it was, there was a lot of pressure on these bot builders. And like anything, you run out of parts eventually, you run out of manpower or whatever it is. You can only do so much to your bot to get it ready for the next fight. And it was hard on a lot of these bots and a lot of these bot builders, man. They really put in serious overtime. And sometimes they just weren't able to get their bots up and ready just due to the damage that they incurred for each and every fight.
Yeah, now I've described it to a lot of people that aren't aware of what BattleBots is it's robotics meets WWE or UFC, with the pit kind of being like the NASCAR aspect. So I've been curious about how different ideas came about. You having the UFC background that you do, did anyone from the producers or anyone at Discovery approach you about like, hey, what do you think of a fight card format, or do you know how that originated as far as the idea?
I think they wanted to bring something a little bit different for this season. I think more importantly, I think for the matchmakers and the producers, they're fans as well, and they wanted to see a lot of these great fights and give it to the fans right off the bat. Because in the tournament thing, what we found is, sometimes we didn't get to see those matchups that we really wanted to see, So I think that, for for the producers, for the matchmakers, they wanted to deliver those great fights right off the bat in case they didn't happen in the tournament. So, I think that's why they wanted to bring something different. Now, as far as our feedback, sure, they did ask us what we thought about certain things. A lot of times they didn't make it happen, but they were, of course, asking our feedback on what we thought about the tournament and the single fight format, and we really loved it, and I think it turned out great. I thought it was an awesome idea.
Yeah, I think the season has gone fantastic so far, obviously on a little bit of a break because of Shark Week. And, of course, that's Discovery's big thing each summer. And
sure.
Then we're going to get into the home stretch of it. Now, Logan Davis of Sub-Zero and I talked last week about how, there was an outcome of a fight that I honestly disagreed with. And it was before we even heard your thoughts on it. It was that, I want to say, the Scorpios and was it Ice Wave, that it went sort of the other way, and you said, if you're making all the aggression but I'm landing all the hits, like, who really wins that fight? And so I said, maybe since there's 3 judges, there should be the one with the BattleBots experience, which you have, the celebrity, which is going to be more of a fan perspective, which you have, but that third one, maybe something that has a bit more of a background like yours from UFC, boxing, whatever, that can kind of give that perspective to the other judges.
It's not a bad idea. I think it's not a bad idea. And, in our sport, in the UFC, we talk about it all the time. I mean, you get these judges sometimes, and they do come from a certain, martial arts background. Sometimes they don't. Many times they do not, believe it or not. But, we don't get the right decisions. And listen, it's competition. It's a sporting event. It's combat sports. It's all that combined. You're going to get some bad decisions from time to time. And I feel for the bot builders, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if the decision goes the wrong way, but unfortunately, I feel it's just kind of the nature of the beast. There's a lot of things we can do to tweak this and tweak that, but yes, while I do think that would help and it'd be make it a little bit more fair, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think controversial decisions when it comes to combat sports or any kind of sport it's just always going to be there, right? Our perspectives are always going to be different on varying subjects.
Now, do you watch this with any sort of different, set of eyes than you would a UFC match? Because although similar, they are very different. I wanted to know what part of BattleBots you love the most.
I guess it's just because, I haven't, built a robot before, and a lot of times, we don't know exactly what is going to happen or how these robots are going to collide and what primary weapon is going to hit what part of the bot. To me, there is such an excitement and a nervous energy that is just it's fun. It really is genuinely fun. I have a blast calling those fights, and sometimes because of my background in mixed martial arts or martial arts and fighting, when I watch a mixed martial arts fight, I love it. I have that same kind of nervous energy, that same kind of excitement, but the mystery of it, maybe because I know so much about it, the mystery of it is kind of taken out. So in that way, when I'm watching a BattleBots fight, there is a certain magic and mystery that is there that makes it that much more fun in some ways.
What's been your favorite knockout so far? I said last night on the show that mine has been the Son of Waiachi and Monsoon that we saw recently, just because of how epic that was.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, any of the fights that Tombstone is involved in as well, crazy. But certainly that fight with Son of Waiachi was up there on the list so far. I mean, that was pretty epic, man. And it's crazy because as loud as it might be on television, when you're there right next to the battle box, it is scary, and it is way louder and way more intense than television can possibly transfer. So it's it's fun.
All right. Well, the last couple of minutes here, I wanted to do a fun little word association game, if you will. And that was when I was down there for the tapings, I talked with your co-commentator, Chris Rose, and I asked what bot was the most Kenny Florian-esque, and he said, well, there's no bot with great hair, but he would have to say probably Petunia. So for you, what I wanted to do now is I'm going to say a bot, and whether it's their driver, their weapon, what the bot itself, or even their color scheme, their gimmick, I'm going to say a bot. You tell me the first UFC fighter, past or present, that comes to mind when I say that bot. We'll start out with an easy one.
Okay.
Tombstone.
Tombstone. Oh man, let's see. Let's go with trying to think of like the hardest hitting guy of all time. I mean, Francis Ngannou, but it's not the same because Tombstone is like such a beast where Ngannou just kind of has that one thing. He's kind of like a one hit wonder. Tombstone, not necessarily the case. Geez. How about Conor McGregor? How's that?
Hey, there we go. I was wondering if we were going to get a Conor shout.
There's the cockiness. There's the ability to knock you out at any time. I like that one.
Ray Billings does do the heel rather well.
Yes.
Okay, next one, Lockjaw, and Don Hudson's Lockjaw.
Interesting. Let's go with a kind of George St. Pierre, a bot that is very, capable in a variety of ways. There's some different configurations you can do in there. There's a lot of intelligence involved in the approach. Yeah, let's go with that. And he's been around forever.
Oh yeah, that's a great pick too. How about Sawblaze?
Sawblaze. Let's see. He's kind of like the new kid on the block, but a tremendous amount of potential. Was finishing a lot of these guys, and there's tremendous driving involved, and he's a tactician. Let's go with the 145-pound champ, Max Holloway, the Hawaiian fighter.
Hey, there we go. All right, Ice Wave.
Ice Wave. Aha. All right. Let's see. This is a guy who's been around for a long time. If he catches you, you are in big, big trouble. But he gets his hiccups here and there. He has his hiccups here and there. Let's go with Jeremy Stevens. He's actually fighting this weekend. He's a very powerful 145-pounder who's very close to getting to a title shot. I think that'd be a pretty good analogy.
All right, last two, Blacksmith.
Blacksmith. Always involved in exciting fights, but doesn't always get the nod. Let's see. There's a guy named Darren Elkins. Darren the Damage Elkins. Maybe not all the hardcore mixed martial arts fans or UFC fans know him, but every time he fights, he puts on a show that he can take a beating.
I thought maybe like Forrest Griffin. He was always one of my favorite
that's a good one.
Yeah,
for sure. And everybody knows him. Yes, that actually would be more appropriate. Probably.
Okay, last but certainly not least, Battle Royale with cheese.
Oh, that's funny. I'm trying to think, man. Jeez. Battle Royale with cheese. I'm trying not to insult anyone here. Let's see. Let's go with Tom Lawler. He is a good fighter. But he's there to really put on a show. He's there to entertain. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Is there a Chris Rosebot, since he obviously said that you were Petunia?
I would say he's Battle Royale with cheese. How's that? He tried to insult me. I'll say that. That's him. That's Chris Rose.
All right. Well, he is Kenny Florian from the Octagon to the Battle Box. You guys do a terrific job on commentary. Very well done. Glad that you enjoy it as much as we do. But, hey, thank you so much for taking the time, Kenny. I look forward to hopefully speaking with you again. But, hey, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the season.
I appreciate it, brother. It's going to be a fun one.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the F.A.N show.